All right, welcome. This is Seller Finance Down and Dirty, and it's presented by Bootstrap REI, and I'm your host, Ryan Nickel. All right, so here's a disclaimer. This information is for educational purposes only. None of this is to be construed as legal, tax, financial, or real estate advice. Seek the advice of a licensed professional before acting on the information presented here. So by continuing with this video, you are now giving consent to hold the author, myself, and my partners harmless for any actions that you may take as a result. All right, so how's the market today? This is recorded right now as of March 2023. Are prices going up or are they going down in your local market? Well, let me share what's happening with you in Sacramento, which is my local market. So the median price in Sacramento, as you can see here, it's going up. So the black marks are February 23, 22, 21, all the way back down to February 18. What you'll notice is that even though the prices have gone up, it's not out of the ordinary. This is the norm. February is the kickoff for the spring buying season. So the fact that prices are going up does not necessarily mean that we have a market recovery or that the prices are going to continue to go up. So why are prices going up? Well, as you look here in Sacramento, we have the lowest sales volume in the last 23 years, even lower than 2007 when we had the crash. So it's just a simple supply and demand. So why aren't there more homes for sale? Why is there a shortage of inventory then, if that's the case? Well, because check this out. Roughly 6 of every 7, so basically 85% of U.S. homeowners with mortgages have an interest rate far below 6%. Like, what does far below even mean? Like 2, 3%? So why would they trade their 3% loan for a 7% one? Like, who's going to do that? Like, do the math. A loan on a $100,000 house or interest on a 3% interest on a loan that's $100,000 is going to be $421 a month. At 7%, it's $665. Like, there's a clear difference here, right? So if you have a $350,000 loan on a house at 3%, it's going to be $1,475. At 7%, it's $2,300. It's an $852 difference there. So let's say that that $2,300 was an affordable monthly payment for you. At 3%, how much house are you going to buy? Like, what kind of house could you qualify for? You're looking at a $550,000 loan. At 3%, if that was your monthly payment. Like, roughly here, the comparison at 3%, right, is $200,000 more house. Like, this is life-changing. This is a whole new neighborhood, a whole new type of home. Like, you're talking about, like, you have now changed somebody's life dramatically because of the schools that kids can go with, the people they can associate with, all of this stuff. Neighborhoods, you name it. So when people buy, they tend to buy the most expensive home that they can afford. According to Wall Street Journal and buyers, like consumer buying psychology, when you're buying a house, you're giving the person a psychological boost, making them feel like that they've arrived. And so here's the situation. So if they feel like that they're arriving, then they can show their mom and their dad and their friends and their family at church and anything else, your coworkers, like, hey, here's my house. I feel successful. I've arrived. They're more than likely going to be reaching for the most affordable monthly payment that's in the maximum size of what they can afford. They're not going to be like, I'm going to buy this small, cheap house over here. I'm going to try to afford the most I can possibly do so I can show off to my friends and family. This is what we do. This is human nature. We want to buy the most expensive thing and still make it work for us financially. So let's assume that this $1,475 actually is their maximum payment that they're comfortable with or what their income will allow. And so they are able to get at 3% a $350,000 loan. Well, what can they get at 7%? Well, $1,475 at 7% is going to be $221,000. This is $129,000 less. This is a smaller home, guys. This is a step backwards. So remember this, when they buy a house, they feel like they have arrived. People are going to start saying like, hey, I'm not going to be able to I'm not going to be able to move. They're going to stay put and not sell. Look at this. This person has written, we've been house hunting and there's hardly any inventory in the good school zone. And same district, just better zone. The houses that are in, quote, the good school zone are expensive and a lot of them are not as nice as my house. I just keep comparing. It pains me to say that so much for a downgrade. Why are people going to be paying for a downgrade? It's a step backwards. As their families grow, they're going to buy bunk beds and they're going to remodel their houses. This is just the logical situation of why inventory is so low right now. So, but won't they be able to sell if they run into a trouble? Well, here's the thing. Housing is less affordable now than the peak of 2008. An average American would need to spend 43% of their income to be able to afford the median price home today. This was just published a couple of days ago, March 7th, 2023. So if housing is unaffordable and seller needs to sell quick and there's little to no equity, what are they to do? What are their options? Hi, I'm Ryan Nickel, or or Ryan 5 cents, and I'm going to share with you what I'm doing right now in this market and how you can also do the exact same thing to profit from these properties that when they become distressed and have low interest rates and no one is able to qualify to buy their property, what you can do to take over those loans. I'm a best-selling author twice, actually 3 times, and here's the proof. But before all of that, I lost my house to foreclosure. I was forced to move the day after Christmas. We were so poor that year that this is our Christmas tree. My daughter was 1 and my wife was pregnant with our second. And we weren't able to even afford a real Christmas tree for our daughter for her very first Christmas. A few years later, I lost my job. And with that, I didn't know what to do, so I got on food stamps. I'm like, I got to provide for my family. At this point, I had 3 kids. My wife was pregnant with our 4th. And so I decided to go ahead and dabble into real estate. I had a friend that had a course that he sent me. He's like, hey, check this out. This is what you need. And so I announced to the world in Lake Tahoe, I buy houses any condition, any price. And for months, I struggled, did not do a single deal. And the same friend who lived in Georgia said, why don't you come out to Georgia and I'll teach you for real how to do this and you can shadow me. So I took my car, left my wife and kids, drove all the way across the United States, took the leap of faith, slept in the back of his office on the floor trying to learn this business. And within 3 weeks, with no money, no credit, no banks, this is the first deal that I ever purchased. And this is the family that I sold it to. And I made $20,000. I called my wife and I said, hey, hun, pack your bags. We're moving to Georgia. Went out there for about a year, learned how to do real estate, and then came back to California where I'm at today. So I want to teach you how to be an investor. If you can't find deals, you're not an investor, you're a buyer. A buyer buys and an investor profits. I learned this from Matt Terriall. So this is what we're going to cover. Some creative financing foundational concepts and principles, where to find the deals, how to work with sellers to generate creative financing opportunities, and what paperwork to use. So we're not that different. We're both looking for cash flowing opportunities. The MLS deals are coming harder and harder to come by, and we both want to get the best deal possible. So let's go over some seller financing foundational concepts and principles here. So what is seller financing? This is where the seller finances a portion or all of the sale with clearly defined terms. Why? Because the seller doesn't want to receive all their money up front. That's the reason. It's more attractive to sellers who can't sell in the traditional means. This is a way for them to go ahead and still sell their house even when it doesn't sell. So there's 3 types of seller financing that we're going to talk about here. Lease options, contract for deed, or depending on where you're at in the United States, land contracts, and then subject tos. So a lease option is basically it's a contract where you're able to, quote, lease the property for a set period of time with the option to purchase at a future date with an agreed upon price, hence the lease with an option to purchase. A contract for deed is basically a contract that states that you must make payments until it's paid in full before the deed is transferred to you. You ever buy one of these without a bank or from a bank? So you don't get the title until it's paid in full. Same with a contract for deed. Now you're the registered owner, you pay taxes and insurance on the car, you just don't have the title until it's actually all completely paid for. Now subject to is different. This property is deeded to you with the understanding that you're going to be taking over the existing payments. This is not a loan assumption, but a purchase subject to the existing debt. So the deed's going to be in your name from day one, and the seller's credit's on the line, so you need to honor your commitment to make sure you're making those monthly payments for them. Now, a quick note on notes. Usually when a property is owned free and clear, this is when you would use a note. So seller financing this is a true seller financing. A subject to is when there is a underlying mortgage. A note or a seller financing is when there is absolutely nothing underneath. So the deed's going to be in your name from day one, and you're going to create a note for that debt owed with a promise to pay. That's what the note is. The note is basically a promise to pay back the debt. And this also can be used for second mortgages as well. But here's a question I get a lot. Isn't subject to illegal? Well, do you know what this is? This is a settlement statement. It's a HUD-1. So when you purchase a property from a title company, you are going to go ahead or escrow, closing agent, whatever it is, they're going to present this with you. This is a government form that is regulated by HUD, which is a Housing and Urban Authority here. So the HUD here, now what happens is this is federally regulated. Check this out. On line 203 or 803, depends on who's preparing the HUD, the federal government has made allowances for you to buy property subject to. It says right here, existing loans taken subject to. You can actually purchase properties taken subject to, and the federal government has made allowances for this, so it's definitely not illegal. Okay, but what about the due on sale clause? I do get this a lot as well. What happens with, if the mortgage company finds out that you've transferred title now and you have not sold, or you've sold this property and you've transferred title to somebody else, but you did not pay off the mortgage. Doesn't the mortgage company have the right to come and say, hey, this property is due on sale? You've sold it, therefore it is due. You owe us. Well, here's the thing. Again, Congress, the federal government, has made allowances for this. The Garn-St. Germain Act of 1982 allows the owner of record to transfer their interest in their property from their given name to a trust without triggering the due on sale clause in most mortgage contracts for estate planning purposes. So, what do? We buy land trust. All of our properties are in land trust for this purpose. We have the seller go ahead and transfer the property into the trust, and then we purchase the trust. That's how we do it. Now here, I purchased a property a number of years ago, and we had the insurance on the property renew, and when it renewed, they forgot to put the original borrower as an additional insured, and I got this letter in the mail, and it scared me. I'm like, oh my God, the bank found out that I've been doing this. What it says was, because our mortgage is in your name, you must also be listed on the policy if you have sold this property on a land contract. Remember one of those terms we talked about? The insurance agent for the party occupying the property must list you as an additional insured. When I got this, my heart just sang for joy. I thought, oh my God, this is my golden ticket. I can now move forward with the freedom of knowing that these banks are not looking out. They're not going to come after me. They're not the boogeymen that want their mortgage money. They're looking at this going, yeah, we understand what you did. Let's go ahead and correct it so we can, in case anything ever happened to the house, you're insured and we can get our money and we can get paid off. After this, I went from food stamps to financial freedom. I was able to go out with the confidence that the banks were not going to come and crash down on me and take away all my properties. And so I say this to you to give you the confidence as well that you can do this, that this is not illegal, and what you're doing is a legitimate way to buy and sell property. So can the seller get another mortgage? Well, it depends on their credit. Because that's a question I have as well. Well, if I sell you my house subject to and it's on my credit report, can I buy something in the future? Well, it all depends on what your credit, your debt to income, the down payment, all of those things. We've worked with a handful of sellers who have moved on and gotten other mortgages. Sometimes the lender needs to know and to be walked through what happened and why. And usually that's enough just to go ahead and clear things up so they can go ahead and qualify you for another mortgage. Because technically you do not own the house and you haven't made payments on the house for, in most of our cases, years. So let's go ahead and jump into this. Seller financing down and dirty, part 1, finding the deal. So deals are created or found. So driving for dollars is one of the best ways that I do this. Looking for houses that have high probability of selling that currently are not on the market. So the best practices are to drive the same routes. Keep a pen and paper with you, track your miles, keep track of your types of properties. Again, about tracking your miles is you're a professional now. That's our tax write-off. So here's driving for dollars secret number 1. Not all houses are created equal. There are A's and B's. There are abandoned houses and there are beater houses. Abandoned houses have the hard-to-find owners that don't want to be found. They're usually hiding, and if they are found, they're not truthful about their situation. You have your beater houses. These houses are ugly because the owner can't afford to take care of them, or they just don't have the health to. They can't sell because they have nowhere to go, and or they can't afford to move, and typically they don't take change real well. So keep a separate list for each type of house. Why? Well, this is secret number 2. Your message to your market must match the market. So anything you're marketing has to match who you're marketing to. So don't be a lazy marketer. Match your message to your market. Market to abandoned property owners different than you would to beater properties. So mass postcards. I made this mistake early on. This was me. I would just go out there and just put the same postcard to any different property, whether it was abandoned or whether it was owner occupied or whether it was an investment property. It didn't matter. I would just blanket in the market with these postcards. And here's the thing about these postcards. There's nothing special about these postcards. I can take out the name of my company and put someone else's name in, or I can take the name of that company and put someone else's name in, or someone else's name in. They're all the same. There's nothing special about this at all. We all say the exact same thing to everybody. There's no difference here. And that's why these things end up in the trash immediately. And that's when I started to use this invitation mailer. And what the invitation mailer basically is it's a quick little down and dirty lesson or letter or note that says, hey, I saw something at your house that I would like to buy. I can pay cash for it. Give me a call. Thanks. Now, going back to this, it looks like, oh my God, am I getting an invitation to a wedding, to a birthday party or something? What's going on? I'm curious enough that I'm going to open this and then I'm going to find out oh, this guy wants to buy something at my house. And this is for vacant properties, by the way. So now I'm thinking whoa, what did I leave over there that may be valuable? Or what is there that, what's this guy doing? Snooping around my house? Either way, I'm going to get a phone call. And usually the way the phone call happens is hey, they're hey, what is it you want to buy? I'm hey, thanks for calling me, give me a call back. I'm actually really interested in buying the house. I can pay cash for it. And now and what are your plans with that property? Now we're into a conversation. So driving for dollars, secret number 3. recognizing the not so obvious signs of distress. So these are hidden gems, and if you can understand these hidden gems, you're going to be light years ahead of your competition. And the well is never going to run dry for you because you're going to be the front end of the buying cycle. You're going to be identifying and finding these properties before anyone else will. But doesn't everyone know this? Well, no. Most abandoned and beater properties are overlooked by other investors. They don't know what to look for, and they don't have the time to chase the sellers. This is your best asset, your time. So what to look for? Here are some freebies. For rent signs. Check out this for rent sign right here. There's this guy here has put masking tape over the price because he's so lazy. He's like, I don't just put masking tape over here. The prices are going up. I'm just going to do this. I mean, this is definitely a mom and pop. Maybe someone that wants to sell their house. Maybe they're a distressed landlord. Who knows? FSBO signs. Now, I usually pick on FSBOs because they either don't have enough equity to hire a real estate agent or they're too cheap to, and they don't know what they're doing. Unless it's an agent themselves, which is very rare. But what happens here is this is somebody that doesn't know what they're doing, and they definitely need your help. Signs in the window. This is a house that's been winterized. The person has moved out, the lender has gone in, and they've taken care of the precautions so that nothing would happen to the house in case like a pipe or burst or something like that. So this lets me know that the house is vacant. No mailbox, and the gate is locked. So if there's no mail receptacle, they're not getting mail. No one's living there. Multiple broken down cars, wheelchair ramps. Obviously, someone lives here, but they're definitely older, maybe getting towards the end of life. They may need to go into a care home, something. So there's definitely an issue that could require you to purchase their property in order for them to afford to move on to the next phase of life. Roof damage, neglected roof, hoarder properties, old vehicles, boarded up, overgrown vegetation. These are all the things to look for to cue in on that. Hey, there's either someone here that lives here and they're having a hard time maintaining this property, or it's completely abandoned. So driving for dollars is actually really easy if you use Deal Machine. It can be all done from your mobile device. You can hire someone to drive for you. I've done this. I've hired many people to drive for me. I track their routes, I track their hours, I track their miles, and I go ahead and pay them that way. It also will skip trace for you as well. You can be in front of a house, and rather than going back to your office or to your home, you can pull it up right there, pull up the information, find out where they are, and give them a phone call right there on the spot. So if you haven't used Deal Machine before, go ahead and go to this URL. It's dealmachine.app.link/bootstrap.rei. Use the code bootstrap.rei. It's 15 credits. It's going to give you 2 weeks for free. Just try it out. You don't have to continue with it. Just try it out and see what happens if you get some information, if you get a couple of bites back with your postcards. All right, Seller Finance Down and Dirty Part 2, Creating the Deal. How to work with sellers to create seller financing opportunities. Secret number 1, you want to identify the seller's problem. So seller finance deals are found, they're not created. Nope, that's wrong. They aren't found, they are created. This is the thing. Most people think that they can just call up the seller like, hey, seller finance, can you seller finance me your house? No, it doesn't work that way. You must find out what the seller's problem is and then go about solving their problem through real estate. This is the secret. You are buying problems and selling solutions. What do I mean? These are problems. Job transfers, divorce, job loss, probate. All of these are problems that you are buying, and you are now selling the solution to get them out of this problem. So for example, this is a house that I purchased. They were getting a divorce. They owed it at market, and they were behind 2 months on their payments. Bankruptcy. Mother's income was used to pay the bills. Mother was moved into a care facility. They no longer could afford the house. They went into bankruptcy. Job transfer. It's a retired military. He took an out-of-state job from South Carolina to Idaho, and he was upside down $50,000. These are all problems in real life. So the solution on every one of these problems was that I was able to solve the seller's problem by taking over their house and the payments for them. My profit after I sold the first house was $5,000 to me and $400 a month. The second house was $12,000 to me plus $200 a month in cash flow. And the last one was $11,000, almost $12,000 to me plus $200 a month in cash flow. So I bought their properties, but I didn't keep them as rentals. I turned around and I sold them as seller finance opportunities, and this was my profit. Secret number 2, never buy until you know it's sold. So you never have to put a dime of your own money into a deal, even when the seller wants a down payment. The old adage that you need money to make money, it does not apply here. Knowing how to structure win-win deals is what keeps you in the deal. So for example, in this particular house, they needed money, but they couldn't show it. The husband had fallen off the roof. He broke his neck and he couldn't work. The wife had cancer, but she was in remission, thank goodness. But they couldn't show a lump sum of increase from their sale to their house because they would lose their medical. Her remission, her pills her cancer pills that she was taking were $5,000 a month. They depleted all of their savings. And then once they finally hit rock bottom, then the government stepped in and said, okay, we can now help you with the cost of your medicine. and they did not want to lose that, but they wanted $20,000 as a down is for their equity. They wanted to be bought out. They wanted their equity, but they couldn't show any kind of money more than $2,000 in their bank account at any given time. Pre-foreclosure. Mom had moved back home. She lived out of the country in Burma, and the house was in foreclosure. Daughter was given power of attorney. They just wanted $6,500 so that they could bury mom when she passed. Tired landlord. He had moved to Mexico. He had rented this house on and off for 7 years. He had tried to sell, but it's been vacant for 7 months, and it cost him $2,000 a month to maintain. And he wanted $25,000. So the solution on every one of these deals was that I was able to find a buyer who was able to give the seller exactly what they wanted, and still, this is the key, still had extra money to pay me for structuring the deal. You want to always be marketing for buyers, because your buyers are your lifeline. They are the blood and soul of your business. So my profit, again, because I had buyers, on the first one, it was $600 to me, $650 to me plus $185 a month, $2,500 to me on the second house plus $288 a month, and the last one was just $17,500 to me. So secret number 3 is that you only want to do all-inclusive profit deals. Well, what do I mean by all-inclusive profit deals? Well, let me go ahead and share with you what the 3-step evolution is for real estate investors. So everyone goes through this process, and this is what they are told, and this is like the 30-year plan. This is like, welcome to real estate. We're going to teach you how to make money over 30 years. The first one is you're going to grind. You're going to get out there and you're going to wholesale, and you're going to make these medium-sized paydays. And then you're going to grow. And once you've done wholesaling for maybe 5 years or 7 years, and you've built yourself up a nice portfolio of money, you can start flipping. And you're going to get some large paydays. And now once you've built up this for the next 10 to 15 years, you've had these huge paydays, you can finally get into the golden years, and you can start holding your properties, so you get the small monthly paydays. This is the lie that they tell you about real estate. You got to get out there, you got to grind it, you got to wholesale it, and then you can start flipping, and then you can start holding. Well, here's the beautiful thing about seller financing is that seller financing is a perfect 3-in-1 strategy. Seller financing allows for you to have these small monthly paydays, this cash flow, the monthly cash flow, by the way, medium-sized paydays, move-in down payment money, and large paydays, equity when they cash you out. That's the beautiful thing about seller financing. So you can buy and sell using seller financing, and this is exactly what I do. When you buy and sell using seller financing, you're able to do it all without any of your own money. And the best part is when you do it this way, you're still getting the monthly income without the hassle of being a landlord. The buyer pays for the repairs, the upkeep, the maintenance, the taxes, and the insurance, not you. So these are some of the deals that I've purchased recently. Ridgecrest, California, Lower Wyandotte, Norville, and Garden Highway in Yuba City, California. So the home of Ridgecrest, Lower Wyandotte, and Garden Highway. So what motivates us? Well, we are either moving away from pain or toward pleasure, away from fear and toward greed. So what motivates us? These are types of motivation, good and bad. So the motivation for Ridgecrest was the son had become ill, and they couldn't afford both the son's medical treatments and the house. The lead source came from another wholesaler, but the house was too skinny. Lower Wyandotte wanted money for a new place and just didn't want to live where his dad had died. Lead source came from a property scout. Garden Highway, they wanted to pay off their debt so they could move into a bigger home, and this came from probate. So what do these conversations sound like when I actually take over their payments from them? You know, many people think it's like this: give us the house and nobody gets hurt. But really, they're like this. These are conversations that come from the heart. But it never starts there. You must know your numbers before you can negotiate. So here it is. And the reason why you want to know your numbers is so that you're not breaking people's hearts, because you're going to have some real emotional conversations with people. You want to make sure you can actually do the deal. So they had purchased the house in April of 2018 for $150,000. They owed $142 on it, and the monthly payment was just over $1,000. My conversation to them was like, I'm not sure if I can do this. I live very far away from the area. I've never been to your area, and I'm not sure if I can find a buyer or not. Why don't you just rent it out? Lower Wyandotte, he inherited the house in December of 18. He owed $112 on it. It was worth $130. It was an arrears of $16,000, and the monthly payment was $985. So I'm not sure if I can help you. You're asking for $50,000 for a new place when this one's only worth $130,000 all fixed up, and you owe $128, and it's all thrashed. So he said back to me, well, if it's not worth it to you if it's not worth it to me for $2,000, I don't let the bank have it. Garden Highway, they owed $58,000. Mom had died and passed it on to them in 2016. It needs repairs and upgrades about $35,000, and it was only worth $115. Monthly payment was only $480. I told him, I said, you shouldn't sell me your house. You should stay put and just pay off your debts and then look at selling once you've built up enough equity. So a little recap here. In Ridgecrest, I didn't know their market, so I told them they should rent it out. In Lower Wyandotte, it wasn't worth $2,000 to the seller, so it wasn't worth $2,000 for me. Let's let the bank have it. That's what he said. And then Garden Highway was, stay put, save yourself the money and pay down your debts. So what are you seeing here? Which their motivation? Well, Ridgecrest was they couldn't afford it. Lower Wyandotte wanted a new house, and Garden Highway wanted to pay off their debts. I took the conversation away from them every time. I said, I don't know your market. Rent it out. Lower Wyandotte. If it's not worth $2,000 to you, then I agree. Let the bank have it. And then, of course, Garden Highway. You should stay and pay off your debts and then move. So where do we go from here? Because I just told them, I don't want your house. Like, wait, but aren't I in the business of buying properties? Like that's what you would think, right? Like I'm in the business of buying houses. Yes, only when I can solve a problem. So if I left them there, you probably thought that was a jerk. Like, oh my God, this guy's an asshole. Like, what did he do this for? Well, if I'm not solving a problem, I'm only competing on price. So I give them two solutions: list it with an agent and fix it up and sell it. Both of these options work because they're based on price. So if they list it with an agent, they're going to make more money. If they fix it up and sell it, they'll make more money. So if I can't get my price, I must get my terms or the deal doesn't work. Remember this book? I let the book educate them. It teaches them, so I leave it with them. People are going to throw away your business card, but they're not going to throw away your book. So the book teaches them. I actually opened it up to the chapter, fold down the page, and I gave it to them. I said, go ahead and read this chapter. It's going to help you out. If no one's coming to see the house, guess what? It's priced too high. If people are coming and there's no offers, guess what? It's priced too high. Both problems are solved by dropping the price. But what if they can't drop the price? What if there's no equity to give up? Well, he who educates dominates. Remember what motivates us? Moving away from pain toward pleasure, away from fear toward greed. You have to uncover their emotional pain and find out what is actually truly motivating them. People make decisions once you uncover their emotional pain. But you have to be careful of their smoke screens, because what you think is their motivation isn't. It's just a smoke screen. So people are very logical when it comes to expressing and describing their emotions. So it's what they have told you is just a logical response to their emotional problem. And you got to be able to tell the difference between the two. This is how they're justifying their decision. It's not the emotional reason behind it. It's just the logic they're using to describe it. So you got to find the emotional pain. And once you discover their emotional pain, you got them. But then and only then can you solve their emotional problem, which again is why you must know your numbers, so that when you're negotiating with them, you already know that you can do the deal, because you're going to get really emotional with some of these people. So how do you do it? You need to learn to ask probing questions. You got to dig deep. You can dig deep with flashcards. Have you ever seen these before? Have you heard about these? So what about this one? This is called the Ace of Clubs. This is a great one to use. Basically, it says, why would anyone? When I'm walking around a house, I go, why would anyone want to sell a house like this? This is a great house. Or maybe I don't even say it's a great house. I'm like, why would anyone want to sell a house like this? Well, let me tell you why I'm going to sell it. And they'll go into all the details why they're going to sell it. Jack of Clubs. The more information I know. I'm going to be asking you some questions about your house and about your situation. And the more information I know, the better the offer I can give you. Oh, okay. Sure. So you're priming them to open up and tell you what's going on. Seven of Hearts. Polar responder. People tend to respond to things sometimes with the opposite of what you're saying or what you're asking. And these are called polar responders. You need to learn how to communicate with those and identify that this person's a polar responder. So if you know they don't have money to hire an agent, or they don't have any equity, be like, so, how come or they don't have the money to fix it up, be like, so how come you're just not going to fix it up? Or how come you're not going to go ahead and list it with an agent? You want them to tell you the reasons why. Because now it's them saying, hey, this is what's happening, this is why I can't do this. So when you parrot it back to them, you're just using their words. And you're helping them realize, like, hey, this is what you told me. I'm not suggesting this. I'm not saying you're broke. You told me that you didn't have the money to do this. Or, like, they got a job transfer or something's happening, they got to sell it immediately. Be like, this is a beautiful home. Definitely interested. I could close by the end of summer. And here we are in March. Like, summer? This has to be done like tomorrow. So use this to redirect the person in the direction that you want them to go. It's very sophisticated, but it works so well. So if you don't have these flashcards, go ahead and pick them up. You can go to bootstraprei.com/flashcards. It only takes 5 minutes a day. And they're broken down into the diamonds are marketing, clubs are sellers, spades are math, and hearts are buyers. These are all the scripts that I use in my business. And if you just practice with 5 minutes a day, it's going to roll off your tongue. And you're going to be very smooth in talking to these sellers and very convincing that you actually know what you're doing and are able to get the information you need to make a decision whether or not you can purchase their house. So, all right, shameless self-plug, over with. Commercial has ended. So going back to the deal here, if you remember, Ridgecrest was, I don't know your market, you should rent it out. Lower Wyandotte, I said, look, if it's not worth $2,000 to me, then I agree. to you, then just go ahead and let the bank have it. And then, of course, Garden Highway, just stay put, man. Save yourself some money, pay down your debts, and be happy. And now it's time for the rest of the story. These are all smoke screens. Rich Chris said they couldn't afford it. Laura Wynott said, I want a new house. And Garden Highway said, I want to pay down my debts. So Rich Chris' true motivation was that they could not afford to miss a house payment because she would lose her security clearance, her job, and ultimately her son's insurance. This is why they couldn't rent it out, because they could not afford to take the risk that if the renter did not pay, they would then miss a house payment, which would affect her credit, which would cause her to lose her security clearance, which would cause her to lose her job, and ultimately she would lose her son's insurance. She was looking at being a good mom, looking out for her family. Her true motivation was that she couldn't do anything other than get rid of the house, because in her mind, that was the only thing she could do to protect her son. True motivation. Laura Wynott could not afford to have a tax consequence from a foreclosure. Because what would happen was it would be shown as income on his tax return that showed that he made more money than he actually did, and he was already paying 50% of his monthly paycheck for child support, and he could not pay any more. And so a foreclosure would put him in a position where he would be forced to pay more in child support, and he couldn't afford that. Because it'd be like, look, you made $50,000. Where's that money? We never saw it. We need to garnish more of your wages. Garden Highway's true motivation was, once they discovered the mortgage statement that his mother had taken out a loan modification just before her death, that there was an additional $60,000 in deferred principal that they owed on the property, they realized that they were in a never-ending battle with this property. So it was time to solve their problem. So Ridgecrest was that their problem was they couldn't lose a security clearance, or they'd lose their job and ultimately her son's insurance. So I took over their house subject to, and gave the seller $500 for showing the house to the next buyer. And they were meticulous about this. They showed buyers on a Saturday. I remember this. And there were about 4 or 5 that went through the house, and they afterwards said, this is the one that we would choose if we were doing this ourselves. They asked the right questions about the house. They did this. They had a disabled son. All of these wonderful things, and that was actually who I decided to go with. And they are still in the house today. Laura Wynott was, if there was a foreclosure forgiveness, it would show an increase of wages on his taxes, and then that would cause his child support to go up and possibly garnish his wages. So the solution was to take over the house subject to as a form of debt relief, and I gave the seller $2,000. Garden Highway, they realized that there was no equity in the home and that they would be fixing it up forever and have nothing to show for it. Solution, took the house over subject to, and I gave them $2,000. So now you can see that seller financing is a way for you to go ahead and pick up properties at a very, very affordable way. Let's go ahead and show you how to seal the deal with seller financing down and dirty, part 3, sealing the deal. So your deal is only as good as the contracts used to secure it. So it is your job to know which contracts to use and when. So the paperwork I'm going to go ahead and go over and cover with you when buying is a purchase and sales contract that's assignable, a purchase and sale contract that's subject that you can use for subject tos, and then of course an equity purchase. This is for California only, and this is according to California Civil Code 1695, which deals specifically with pre-foreclosures. All right, so when we talk about selling, the paperwork used is lease options, contracts for deeds, and land trusts. And then at the time of contract, I also get letters of authorization and seller's disclosures. So here's my assignable contract. Now you can use any contract you want. I just make sure that it has this verbiage in it. The buyer may assign or otherwise transfer any of buyer's rights, titles, and interest and to this purchase agreement to a third party without seller's consent. That's all I want, is that I can assign this. This is for wholesaling purposes. Subject to. It's basically the same contract, except I have buyers purchasing the property subject to the existing loan. Buyer will make payments on current loans. That's it. I have identified them, and I have the total amount of the property that I'm taking, the loan amount approximately. But it's stated specifically that I am buying this property subject to. Now, the California equity purchase contract, there's a lot of verbiage that's in there, but however, the most important thing is this. It's required by law that you give them a 5-day right of rescission. Now, here's the thing. A lot of investors do lose these deals because they'll go into contract and the buyer's still shopping. They're looking for different opportunities to find a better price, and they'll cancel on you. I've had this happen to me. It's happened to other investors that I know. However, that was before I understood that I was actually solving an emotional problem. When I was competing on price, yeah, they were still shopping. But once it got down to what their emotional problem was, and they knew that I was going to solve that emotional problem, they stopped shopping altogether. People would come knock on the door. Hey, I'll offer you this. I'll give you this. I'll give you that. No. I've already spoken with Ryan. His company's going to help us. This is what they're doing. They are so loyal to you because you've hit on such an emotional level that they understand that you get them. They feel seen, they feel heard, and they know that you're not going to back out at the last minute. which often does happen. And so I'm not ever worried about this equity purchase when I'm buying pre-foreclosures because of that. I get a letter of authorization. These are my seller's disclosures. But what about when selling? So there are pros and cons when you're seller financing your deals. So the upside in seller financing is that there's no maintenance or upkeep, no taxes or insurance, and it's the cheapest source of funds to do deals. You are using the seller's money, not your own. It's a beautiful thing. The downside is that you don't take property appreciation, and there's no increase in rents over time, unless they default and you have to take the property back, which you never would want to wish anyone harm or ill will, but it does happen, and I have taken properties back over time. So I want you to understand the buying and selling hierarchy. So when you buy at the base here, if you buy as a subject to, you can turn around and sell it as a contract for deed or a lease option. You have the most flexibility. When you buy on a contract for deed, the only option is to sell it as a lease option. And then when you buy as a lease option, you actually can't sell it because you don't own it yet. You're just in a lease with the option to purchase. The only thing you can do is assign it. It's the least flexible. And so if that's the only way that I can get into a property, I'll do it. However, my preference is to buy it subject to. And when I'm structuring a deal, if the buyer has only 3 or 5% to put down, I'm only going to put them in a lease option. If they have 10 to 20% to put down, I'm going to do a contract for deed. So you should have none of your own money in any of these deals. The buyer needs to cover all costs and profit in order for the deal to work. Remember the examples I showed you before? The buyer brought the money to the table, not me. So this is my 10% rule. My costs need to be less than 10% ARV, after repaired value. Why? Well, that's because that's where my profit is. And it determines what kind of offers I can accept as well. Check this out. So if a house is worth $350,000, but it costs $50,000 to whether to bring a current or fix it up and all of that, it's not a deal unless I can find a buyer who's willing to pay you more than $50,000 for a house, because 10% of $350,000 is $35,000. So $50,000 is definitely more than $35,000. Do the math. But what if it only costs $25,000? Well, that's a deal, but I'm only able to find and accept contracts for deed buyers with 10% down or more, because 10% of $35,000, of $350,000 is $35,000. So if it costs $25,000, my profit's $10,000. But what if it only costs $10,000? Well, then it's a deal, and I'm able to accept either lease options or contract for deed buyers. 5% of $350,000 is $17,500. So I can accept a lease option at $17,500, cost me $10,000, I make $7,500 profit, or I can accept a contract for deed at $35,000, cost me $10,000, and I'm walking away with $25,000 into Hip Pocket National Bank. And this is the paperwork that I use when I'm selling a lease option. So what is important, you can use any residential lease, but you have to have a purchase price and an expiration date. Those are the two main things you have to have with a lease option. A contract for deed. Well, the contract for deed, you have to have a purchase price, an interest rate, the numbers of months, and then of course it has to be amortized. That's all that it has to have. You can have any other agreement in there. These are the 4 musts. And you also have to do year-end tax paperwork. So be sure that you're sending your buyers a year-end tax statement showing how much they've paid in interest, taxes, and insurance for the IRS, because they can go ahead and claim those as deductions. Now, a land trust, a lot more wordy. However, these are the things that are pertinent about land trust. So land trust is a legal agreement in which the property owner transfers title of the property to a trustee. The property owner is typically the beneficiary, and he or she directs the trustee in all matters relating to the management of the property as outlined in the trust agreement or the deed. Now, the property owner also retains all property rights, including the freedom to develop, rent, and sell the property. And the beautiful part about it is you're anonymous, anonymity. So one of the main advantages of this type of trust is that the actual property owner remains completely anonymous. It's not in public records. The name of the trust is the holder of the property. So a land trust must have the name of the trust, the name of the trustor, the person who's titled to the property, the name of the trustee, the new title property owner, duties of each trustor and trustee, the legal description, and the beneficial interest. So, was this worth it? Did you find utility in it? Did you enjoy it? How about the cost? If you didn't like it, I'll go ahead and return double your money back, all right? So, if you're interested in learning more about real estate or seller financing, follow me. I'm Ryan Nickel. Here's my YouTube channel. It's YouTube. It's just under Bootstrap REI, probably where you found this video. But if you want to learn more, I have a 6-part masterclass on seller financing. It's going to walk you through on how to build several cash flowing seller finance properties. There's also 6 pre-recorded Q&A calls as well. So you're going to have 6 hours of the masterclass plus another 6 hours of pre-recorded calls, which is about 12 hours total, plus 2 personal 15-minute Q&A calls with me to go over anything that you want to do. But the most important thing is I'm looking for partnerships on deals. I want to be able to partner with somebody so that we can make money together and we can have cash flowing properties coming our way. An overview of the 6-part master class is basically Module 1 is identifying the opportunities. Module 2 is contacting the owner. Module 3 is evaluating the deal. Module 4, contract the property. Module 5, how to market to find buyers. And of course, Module 6, collecting the cash and putting it all together. So some of my past students have paid live to learn this from me over 3 days, and they paid $5,000 to participate. For the next 48 hours, or as long as this video is up, it's only going to be $1,000. All you have to do is go to bit.ly/bootstrap-rei, and now capitalization is key here. It's capital B for Bootstrap, and then capital R, capital E, and capital I. If you do not put it in exactly like that, it will not take you to the right page. And again, it's for the next 48 hours. So bit.ly/bootstrap-rei, and I'm looking to partner with you. I want you to learn the basics, and then we can go together and we can make a lot of money together. So again, for the next 48 hours, or as long as this video is up, I am looking for individuals that want to learn the foundation themselves, and then we can go ahead and refine what you're doing in your own personal market so that we can go and we can find deals together, and we can have the best part, buyers fund the entire transaction for us. So we're using none of our own money when we are buying these properties. Just remember, guys, you are one deal away from changing your entire financial future. So why not go ahead and take a chance and get out there and start making some money?